What's up, everybody? It's Charles, and if you guys have been following that Mark 5 GTI build, not really a build, more of a project, more of a rehab, more of a sometimes I felt like that car should just be smashed and crushed and recycled and maybe parted out to the universe. We're going to recap a little bit on what we did to that car. The car is now back home at FCP Euro. So I did a video on all the things that were wrong with it before starting to work on it, and it actually turned out to be so much more that we ended up having to do to the car in order to even get it drivable. So today we're going to run down everything that was broken, everything fixed, and some of the problems that I ran into on this car that made my life, we'll call it challenging. First up, we'll start with the check engine light, which actually came on my drive home from picking it up. Had some fuel pressure issues. Signs pointed to the thrust sensor installed in the high pressure fuel pump. It was an older revision, so we went ahead and put a new one on. This was a good opportunity, though, to pull the high pressure fuel pump out, inspect the follower, look at the cam. It's a pretty straightforward job, and actually that one went pretty well. I'll link up the playlist for the Mark 5 videos. We also did the left front door latch, which is one of the most common Mark 5 problems. Actually, it's a super common VW problem no matter what generation. Next up, replacing the cooling fans. One of the T30s that holds the fan shroud to the radiator actually broke off in the radiator. Yes, a metal bolt broke off in a plastic housing, and I could have tried harder to get this bolt out. Unfortunately, drilling or using a lot of high heat is a bit of a sketchy process on the radiator because, well, we don't want to melt the plastic of the radiator, and we surely don't want to drill too far into that radiator and pierce it and then cause a coolant leak. So the fan job ended up being new fans, a radiator, a core support because it was totally broken and damaged, so the charge cooler actually wouldn't stay in proper place, and I went ahead and put a charge cooler mount on it. Guys, whenever you're doing a radiator or a charge cooler in the case of the Mark 5, it's a really good idea to replace those mounts. There's a lot of wiggle and vibration that happens with those mounts over time. Plus, you don't want to go back together with broken components when for like 15 bucks, you can slap a new one on and do it the right way if those parts are still available. Next up, we did the vacuum pump. Pretty straightforward repair, just one seal that you need to replace, although cleaning and inspecting is a good idea when doing this. You may remember we had a wiper motor that wasn't functioning properly, so took the wiper transmission out. Found that one of the wiper arms was actually rounded out. The conical piece where it mounts to the transmission was all wobbled out, or wallered out, I think is technically the official SAE term, wallered out. So it wouldn't properly mount to the transmission, which meant a little bit of wait time and some new wiper arms. Luckily, though, after that's installed, the wipers went in perfect the first time. I didn't have to make any adjustments for sweep, so you guys will be getting a video coming out on that soon. You'll notice a trend here. Most of these jobs kind of went sideways. Due to impact damage, we put two new headlights. The headlights actually didn't go too bad, other than I needed some missing hardware that was gone due to damage. But I gotta say, I really like these black housing headlights, way better than the clears. Plus, you can actually see out of them. We had a leaking valve cover, so we put a new valve cover on it. I was worried about cracks in that top portion. Those valve covers are pretty common too. They leak, which can be replaced with a gasket. But there is actually PCV valving inside the valve cover, and that's a common place to find a vacuum leak, and that can cause rich or lean condition or boost issues. So that's wreaked havoc on a lot of guys with damage to that valve cover. Sometimes it doesn't smoke out when you smoke test it. Other times it does. So if you got a BPY and are having weird problems like that, take a look at the valve cover because that may be your issue. We did a right rear wheel bearing due to noise. Another pretty easy job. The only thing here I was concerned about was those stupid triple squares for the rear brakes. I was worried about getting those off, and the torque on that back bolt that holds the wheel bearing on is crazy high. It's like 250 Newton meters plus half a turn, or 180 plus 180, something like that. It's high. We did brakes all around the world, which it's really needed it. You could see here just how little contact the rotor and the pad were actually making. This is my trick for working on these on jack stands. It's not elegant, it's not pretty. It's way easier to do when you're doing these cars on the lift because you can get the car high enough up to get a big breaker bar or something on it, where you can't really do that when you're working on them on the ground. So here's my little tricks. As always, make sure you guys are being careful when you're doing something that maybe not being by the book, but hey, we gotta do what we gotta do, right? Next up was going to be the suspension, but before that could happen, knowing how, good golly, how rusty this car was, I hit everything with penetrating oil many times, over many days, again and again and again, to try and make my life as easy as possible, just because that car, guys, that car is so rusted. The front suspension went pretty well. I did have to cut one of the sway bar end links off. Other than that, not too big of a deal. We did the rear brackets for the control arm bushings, new tie rod assemblies, new ball joints, which, by the way, if you guys don't have one of these ball joint tools, I'm gonna link it up. You probably wanna get one. I've actually rented that one from the auto parts store, so you can do that too and get it for free. They're only about 30 bucks. And just like that, just like that, it's all loose. And wow, that worked really, really well. That was super easy to get that tie rod assembly away. We also did the Sachs Performance coilovers, which went on really, really well. Oh, I can't believe I almost forgot. Another issue that happened, I can't believe I've like repressed these memories. Another issue that happened is the strut plates that are held on with the 3 13mm bolts. They're held on with captive nuts inside this component, and 5, I think, of the 6 or 4 of the 6 actually broke free. So I ended up having to cut all of those bolts, or all of them, I think, on the driver's side and 1 or 2 on the passenger side. I had to cut those off, which I've never had to do before. I've never seen those break like that before. I found 2 of the springs broken when I was taking that apart, which I had always heard that was a common Mark V issue, but I'd never actually seen one myself. But got the front done, got the coilovers kind of set, moved to the back. The back kind of went a little more sideways than the front did. Ended up having to cut bolts for 2 control arms on the passenger side and 1 on the driver's side. Not the most fun thing ever, but not the worst ever. And what had happened, those bolts were actually seized inside the bushing. Using heat might have helped, but we're right near the gas tank, limited space, and I was able to actually get a reciprocating saw in there pretty easy and get those cut off. In the rear, we basically replaced everything but that center subframe. All new links, mostly new hardware, including the eccentric bolts for the alignment adjustment, which is vital. Those were actually 2 of the bolts that I had to cut off. Were actually 3 of the bolts I had to cut off were all eccentrics. A lot of rust, a lot of uncomfortable awkwardness on the back end. I do think, though, I have a whole new respect for those of you technicians that work up in the rust belts of the world and dealing with that stuff all the time. I don't know how you guys do it. I probably would have pieced out of the industry a while ago had I had to deal with that my whole career. Also, I've determined that I definitely need one of those cool mini ductors to get things super duper hot in tight locations. I think that would have made a lot of these jobs way easier, and it is now on my list of tools to buy. They're a little pricey, but we'll put that on the to buy list and to buy it sometime. One of the jobs that I actually wasn't really planning on doing, but kind of came up as necessity, ended up being a full exhaust system, turbo, all the way to the tailpipes. So what actually happened was I thought I had heard some exhaust leak coming from the flex section on the Cat. Not bad, but enough to make note of. Well, then actually as moving things around and dealing with the suspension, not dropping the muffler when doing the rear suspension, the clamp holding the downpipe or the Cat pipe and the Cat back exhaust actually just ripped right apart. Like it just split into 2 pieces. We ended up putting a AWE exhaust on it, which sounded really good. Mimicked the factory exhaust really, really well. We also did the downpipe. The downpipe actually went way better than I expected. I almost like that close almost got away with not having any issues, but of course that final stud actually broke. And another place where had I had one of those mini ductors, I think I could have got it out, but ended up where I just had to actually drill a hole, and I could have rethreaded it, but I ran a bolt through it. I think that's probably gonna be better in long term anyway. This did give me an opportunity, though, to finally use a tool that I bought over a year ago, the Milwaukee right angle drill. A perfect spot for this application because it was tucked behind the transmission. I did, however, have to cut down a couple of drill bits in order to like truly fit square in that hole. Could have been off a little bit there, but I'd rather get it nice and square. That's actually a pretty easy job had that one bolt not broke. If you've ever worked on a BPY at all or opened the hood and went, wow, that's a big engine cover. If you've ever had to put an air filter on it, you know, wow, that's a really dumb engine cover. In fact, I had a VW engineer tell me I was dumb for thinking that that was dumb. And then, as karma would have it, the universe righted itself And later that day, he had to work on one, diagnosing a drivability concern, all while fumbling around with that engine cover like half lifted up. And I was just able to sit back and smile at him with my smug smile because he knew exactly what I was thinking, that he was just being a real prick about it. But anyway, the airbox was destroyed, as most of the BPYs are at this point. So we put a cool intake on it. It does a great job of cleaning up the engine bay, as well as making life easier, not having to deal with that big, stupid, bad Volkswagen, bad engine cover. And finally, the job that probably meant the most, last two jobs, I installed a new hood prop. Attaboy, Charles. Don't ever miss an opportunity to pat yourself on the back, right? I did a great job putting that hood prop on, and in addition to that, I installed a new dipstick, which is another common Mark V. Actually, that's just a common problem, period, on VWs. It's either a broken dipstick or it doesn't have one. After I was done, towed the car up to Performance Chassis, who aligned the Mark III. Did a corner balance, did an alignment, actually in the opposite order, alignment, then corner balance, of course. I got the suspension set really close. We ended up running 2 or 3 turns up on the right front to really balance the car out. Suspension rode really well. Put it on a truck, shipped it back up to FCP Euro. You guys may have seen it at Waterfest with my dumb face on the hood. And then I know a bunch of guys signed it, which is super cool. If you did that and posted a picture, make sure you tag me because I want to see it. Now it's time to work through all the edits and get some of these videos out for you. They'll be coming out throughout the rest of the year. Big ups to FCP Euro. They were a great partner in this project, despite all of the headaches of it being so rusted and the additional parts we ended up having to put on the car. They've been great. All right, guys, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Questions, comments, Mark V problems that you have, leave them down below. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button. Always appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow FCP Euro and all the Mark V shenanigans on places like Instagram and things like that. Links to all that stuff are always down in the description. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the support on the Mark V. What a humbling experience working on that car. But it was fun. Most of those jobs I've done a million times before, but this was kind of a whole different level. So guys, with that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.